Hey everyone, it's Kino here. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Living the Yogis Life, where I share with you what it means really to live the yoga lifestyle, not just on your mat, but really in every moment of your life. So yoga at its fundamental definition is really about the discovery of the true self. And only a calm, clear, and balanced mind can truly perceive the depth level of reality. So the process of yoga is really a process of stilling the mind so that the waters of the consciousness can come to a clarity point. And when that clarity descends on the waters of consciousness, you can perceive the true self deep down within. And so a way to understand the definition of yoga is to root back into Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. And Patanjali is the author of the Yoga Sutras, which were written about 2,000 years ago. And Patanjali defines yoga as yogas chitta vritti nirodha. Nirodha is this state of stillness which comes from the careful inward direction of the mind. And as you begin to practice yoga, this is a function that happens in the field of our mind. The Sanskrit word for mind is chitta. Yoga's chitta, vritti nirodha. So yoga is the process of stilling the mind. And this word vritti in Sanskrit means waves. So in the practice of yoga, there's an experience of absolute stillness. No waves on the ocean of consciousness, no fluctuations or disturbances in the field of the mind. And when the mind field is completely still, when the waters of the mind are still, Patanjali says, tada drashtu shvarupe vashtanam, which means that you can perceive the true self, which is called in Sanskrit the drashtu, or the purusha, the true self, the spark of perfection, the immutable perfect soul within each of us. And the notion of yoga comes from the transcendent peace and the realization that you can experience the deepest self, the true self, that spark of spirit within you, not in an abstract way, but in a very tangible, real way. And I would actually say that any of you who are practicing yoga today have had moments, glimmers, intimations of that immortal piece of your spirit within. And it is actually those moments which we can categorize as epiphany moments in our lives, these sort of peak and transcendent moments of peace that leave us with a sense of faith, that leave us filled with a sense of knowingness, where in those moments we are filled with an absolute sense of the basic goodness of life. So that in that moment, it no longer matters, what shape our body is, what color our hair is, where we come from, what country we're from, what religion we practice, but instead we're simply filled with the eternal presence of oneness, the eternal presence of kindness and humility, so that we understand finally that to be a yogi is to embody the truth of who we really are, the truth of who you really are. And what is that essence but humility and kindness? What is that essence of spirit but the feeling of a boundless purity, the feeling of a love that knows no bounds? So perhaps really the definition of yoga is the search for the true self. And in the discovery of the true self, we can find out that we are so much stronger than we ever imagined ourselves to be. We are filled with so much more love and goodness than we ever imagined possible. And while all those things that we sometimes focus on, like negativity or hurt feelings or disappointments, well, those are just flickers on the grand screen of life, and they're not the heart of the essence of who we really are. Through the practice of yoga, we gain discrimination. The power of discrimination comes when we redirect the objects of our sense organs away from the external world into the discovery of the inner self, so that by practicing yoga, we learn to cultivate inner sight, to focus on the quality of seeing directed at the inner world, rather than the quality of seeing directed at the external world. When our eyes are directed at the external world, we tend to generate desires, or we tend to generate aversions. We experience pleasure and pain, and we're caught in that endless cycle of being attracted towards things which we deem as pleasurable, or running away from things which we deem as painful. Whenever we have our objects of the sense worlds directed into what we can see, what we can touch, what we can accumulate, what we can taste, what we can smell, what we can hear, in the external world, we tend tend to draw that in towards ourselves, creating a feeling of mine, creating a feeling of what we have or what we have not. And instead, the yogi has the power of concentration to redirect the focal point of the senses into the inner body, so that instead of seeing things outside of yourself, instead of focusing on hearing the external world, you cultivate inner sight, you cultivate sensation of the inner body, you cultivate inner hearing, inner sensitivity through all of the organs of the senses. And then in that calm stillness, your attachment and your aversion to the material world, to the opposing forces of pleasure and pain lessens. And in that space of lessening, there is a narrow road of truth that is revealed to you like a light shining on the path of the discovery of the true self. The promise of yoga says that every single person who's on this path, well, you can discover that peace. You can discover and see and directly experience that spark of the eternal which lives inside of you. Not outside of you, but directly inside of you. It's if you simply start with the choice, the powerful choice that says, I'm stronger than my attachment, I'm stronger than my emotions, I'm stronger than my thoughts, and instead I'm going to gain power over the cycle of attachment and aversion, the cycle over where our senses are going, and instead take the powerful choice to focus on the inner experience, to focus on the inner body. And then the light of the spirit dawns, again, not as an abstract sense, but as a real tangible experience. And over many years of practice, we learn to understand that the practice of yoga is really about trusting and surrendering and having faith in the light that dawns when you drop your mind down into the deepest reality, so that you never have to force. Instead, you simply have to believe. And then there's a promise that the practice of yoga makes to you, that if you get on your mat and you practice every day, there's a promise of more peace, there's a promise of more love, a promise of more joy unfolding in every moment of your life. And as you begin to do the poses, well, the poses of yoga are really just tools to help you redirect the objects of the sense world into the experience of the inner body. The poses are really never meant as ends in and of themselves, but instead that cultivated state of nirodha, the state of stillness. This is the essence of the practice of yoga. And as you begin to experience stillness, the mind stilling, the waters of the consciousness stilling, the objects of the senses stilling, as though there is a quiet peace that descends over your mind, over your heart, over your body, and really over your whole life. Well, that peace is really the truth of who you really are. And that stillness, well, that stillness has the power to speak to you. And if you take a moment right now and just close your eyes and place your hands on your heart, you may find that stillness revealing itself to you as a calm sense of knowingness, as a calm sense of vibration. And you may find that that stillness yearns to speak to you, and that you carry it with you like a seed in every moment of your life. Through many years of practice, you'll find that that connection is always there with you. It's not something that ever leaves you. And that through the power of your practice, the power of your mind, the power of your choice to believe in that experience of peace, that inner sanctuary is really the seed of truth that transforms every aspect of your life. I hope you're inspired to continue your practice and continue dropping your mind into the inner body. I hope that the next time you get on your mat to practice the poses of yoga, you'll breathe deeply and discover that inner light. Drop your mind down into the inner body. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Living the Yogis Life. Namaste.